The silent invasion. Commander Elena Reyes stood at the observation deck of Proxima Station, her eyes fixed on the sweeping vista of Proxima EU's azure landscape below. The colony had flourished in the 7 years since its establishment. Gleaming habitation domes connected by transport tubes, sprawling agricultural sectors, and the bustling spaceport that served as humanity's furthest permanent outpost from Earth. Beautiful sight, isn't it? Dr. Marcus Chen joined her at the viewport, his weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass. Elena nodded. Sometimes I forget what we've accomplished here. 15,000 people, a self-sustaining economy, and the most advanced xenobiology research facility in explored space. And yet something troubles you, Marcus observed, studying her expression. Elena's hand tightened on the railing. The long-range sensors picked up anomalies in the Kuiper Belt equivalent last week. Intermittent energy signatures unlike anything we've cataloged before. Natural phenomena. That's what I thought initially. She brought up a holographic display from her wrist unit. But look at the pattern recognition analysis. There's structure here, Marcus. Intelligence. Marcus studied the pulsing readouts, his scientific curiosity visibly piqued. Have you alerted Earth Command? Transmission sent 3 days ago. But at this distance, she didn't need to finish. Even with quantum entanglement communications, the message would take weeks to reach Earth. So we're on our own, Marcus concluded. Elena's reply was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the station. The emergency klaxons blared to life, bathing the observation deck in pulsing red light. Commander Rice to Command Center. Her comms unit crackled. We have multiple unidentified objects breaching atmosphere. She exchanged a quick glance with Marcus before sprinting toward the central elevator. By the time she reached the command center, chaos had erupted. Tactical displays showed dozens of objects descending through Proxima EU's atmosphere, sleek, elongated forms that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Status report. Elena barked, taking her position at the central command post. Lieutenant Ramirez responded without looking up from his console. 37 objects, approximately 70 meters in length. No response to hails on any frequency. Commander, they're heading directly for population centers. Deploy defensive measures. Alert all settlements. Elena's training took over, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. And get me a visual. The main screen flickered to life, showing a live feed from one of the perimeter monitoring stations. Elena felt her blood run cold at the sight. The vessels, if they could be called that, were unlike any alien craft they had encountered in humanity's limited interstellar explorations. They resembled liquid shadows, their surfaces rippling as if composed of some viscous substance that defied the laws of physics. What in God's name are they? Someone whispered. The answer came in the form of devastation. As the first vessels reached the outlying agricultural sector, they opened like blooming flowers of darkness. What emerged wasn't mechanical weaponry or even recognizable technology. It was something more akin to living shadow. Tendrils of absolute blackness that reached out to touch the structures below. And wherever they touched, matter simply ceased. They're consuming everything, Marcus breathed, having followed Elena to the command center. Converting matter directly to energy somehow. Elena watched in horror as the first habitation dome collapsed, its reinforced materials disintegrating under the alien touch. Emergency transmissions flooded the communications channels. Screams, pleas for help, desperate final messages. Evacuate the station, Elena ordered, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. Priority Protocol Omega. Get everyone to the deep space vessels. As the command center burst into frantic activity, Elena pulled Marcus aside. The research data, all of it. We need to get it off-world. Marcus nodded grimly. I'll handle it personally. The evacuation proceeded with practiced efficiency, despite the unprecedented nature of the threat. Elena coordinated from the command center, watching with growing despair as settlement after settlement fell to the shadow vessels. The death toll mounted by the minute. 5,000, 8,000, 12,000. A fresh alarm sounded, more urgent than the rest. "Commander," Lieutenant Ramirez's voice cracked with fear. "3 vessels approaching the station." Elena made the only decision she could. Complete evacuation now. Remaining personnel to escape pods. That's an order. She grabbed the quantum data core that Marcus had prepared, containing everything they knew about the aliens, all the sensor readings, and the complete research archives of Proxima Station, and raced for the executive escape vessel. The station shuddered violently as she sealed the hatch. Through the viewport, she witnessed the first tendril of darkness touch the station's outer hull, spreading like spilled ink across its surface. The escape pod's engines roared to life as the automated launch sequence engaged, tearing the small craft away from the doomed station. As Elena's pod accelerated away from Proxima I, the quantum communications array captured one final, haunting image. The planet's surface crawling with spreading darkness, geometric patterns of consumption that suggested terrible intelligence behind the destruction. The lone escape pod carrying Commander Elena Reyes became one of only 17 vessels to escape the fall of Proxima I. 15,000 souls reduced to barely 200 survivors in less than 6 hours. 3 weeks later, Elena stood before the assembled Joint Chiefs of Earth Defense in the underground strategic command facility beneath the Sierra Nevada mountains. "We're calling them the Void Whispers," she explained, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. The holographic display behind her showed the shadow vessels in terrifying detail. Not because they communicate through sound, but because of what we discovered in the sensor data. She brought up a new display, waveform analyses that pulsed with complex patterns. They communicate through quantum fluctuations in the void itself. The fabric of space-time is their medium. Admiral Hassan leaned forward, his weathered face grave. "And you believe they're coming here next?" "I know they are," Elena replied. The few transmissions we intercepted and partially decoded referred repeatedly to the source world. "They've been studying us, Admiral. Proxima I was just their first taste." General Okafor, head of Earth's ground defense forces, spoke next. "Your report indicates conventional weapons had no effect." "Correct. Proxima's defensive systems, railguns, particle beams, even tactical nuclear options, did nothing. The energy was simply absorbed." The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Earth's defenses, impressive as they were, operated on the same principles. "There's something else you should know," Elena continued, bringing up new data on the display. The survivors' medical screenings revealed an anomaly. Those closest to the Void Whispers, but who managed to escape, showed unusual neurological patterns. Their brains were changing. Dr. Kapoor, Earth's leading xenobiologist, studied the scans with growing alarm. "This looks like some form of quantum entanglement at the cellular level." Elena nodded. "We think the Void Whispers don't just consume matter. They attempt to assimilate consciousness, to understand it." "And did they?" Admiral Hassan asked, the question hanging heavy in the air. "No," Elena said firmly. "That's the one advantage we seem to have. Human consciousness resisted the assimilation. In fact, those exposed reported increasingly clear impressions of the Void Whispers' thought patterns, as if the connection worked both ways." General Okafor looked up sharply. "You're suggesting we use people as weapons, as some kind of psychic countermeasure." "I'm suggesting we use the one vulnerability we've identified," Elena corrected. "The Void Whispers have never encountered a species like us before. They don't understand human consciousness, its complexity, its contradictions. It confuses them. And confused enemies make mistakes." Admiral Hassan exchanged glances with the other military leaders before turning back to Elena. "What exactly are you proposing, Commander?" Elena squared her shoulders. "A new kind of defense force. Volunteers exposed to controlled quantum resonance that mimics the Void Whispers' influence, enhancing the natural resistance we've discovered. A team that can get close enough to understand them, and then exploit that understanding. You realize what you're asking, Hassan countered. Volunteering people for potential brain damage or worse. I do, Elena said solemnly. That's why I'll be the first volunteer. The room erupted in objections and arguments, but Elena stood firm. When the voices finally quieted, Admiral Hassan studied her with newfound respect. How long until they reach Earth? Based on their observed propulsion capabilities and the trajectory we tracked from the few surviving sensor stations in the Proxima system. 4 months, maybe less. Hassan nodded grimly. Then we have work to do, Commander. Because if what you're saying is accurate, humanity is facing an enemy unlike anything we've imagined, and conventional warfare won't save us. As the meeting adjourned, Elena remained at the display, studying the shadowy forms of the Void Whispers. They had taken everything from her home, her colleagues, her sense of security in the universe. But they had underestimated what humans do when pushed to the edge. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for adaptation, for innovation under pressure. Most of all, they had underestimated the fierce determination that burns in human hearts when facing extinction. The Void Whispers were coming, but humanity would be ready. Humanity unleashed. 3 months after the fall of Proxima II, the underground facility, known as the Crucible, hummed with frenetic energy. Deep beneath the lunar surface, shielded from both Earth's vulnerability and the prying quantum senses of the approaching Void Whispers, humanity prepared its most audacious defense. Commander Elena Reyes stood in the center of the neural training chamber, her body connected to a web of glowing filaments that monitored her brainwave patterns. Around her, 11 other volunteers, a mix of military personnel, scientists, and 2 survivors from Proxima I, underwent the same procedure. Initiating quantum resonance in 3, 2, 1. Dr. Kapoor's voice echoed through the chamber. The air shimmered with an opalescent glow as the carefully calibrated field activated. Elena gasped as the now familiar sensation washed over her consciousness, like plunging into an ocean of alien thought, a vast darkness that sought to overwhelm her human identity. For the first weeks of training, she had fought against it, trying to maintain rigid mental barriers. Now she understood better. The key wasn't resistance but controlled immersion, allowing the alien patterns to flow through her mind without surrendering to them. Heart rates elevated but stable, reported Dr. Kapoor's assistant. Synaptic activity within acceptable parameters. When the resonance field finally deactivated, Elena opened her eyes to see Admiral Hassan observing from the control room. His expression was a mixture of concern and grudging admiration. Progress, he asked simply as she joined him after disconnecting from the apparatus. Significant, Elena confirmed. We're not just sensing them anymore. We're beginning to anticipate them. Their thought patterns are becoming intelligible. Hassan nodded. Good, because time's up. The Void Whispers have accelerated. They'll reach Earth in 11 days. Elena felt her stomach tighten. How many? Over 300 vessels detected entering the solar system. They're consuming asteroids, moons, everything in their path to fuel their advance. She absorbed this grimly. And Project Lighthouse. Complete. Hassan led her to a secure briefing room, where the other members of what had come to be called the Vanguard Initiative were gathering. The holographic display at the center showed a sleek spacecraft unlike any in Earth's arsenal. The SSV Prometheus, Hassan announced. Humanity's first vessel incorporating the quantum shielding technology your team developed. Small enough to avoid immediate detection, advanced enough to get you where you need to go. Dr. Marcus Chen, one of the few survivors from Proxima, and now Elena's second in command, studied the vessel's specifications with interest. The inverse quantum field generator worked beyond expectations, confirmed Chief Engineer Takahashi. Initial tests show it creates a blind spot in their perception. They literally cannot see the ship, at least not directly. Elena nodded appreciatively. And the payload. Hassan activated a separate display showing what appeared to be a complex device, roughly the size of a small car. The quantum disruptor. One shot at their central control node should create a cascading failure throughout their neural network. Assuming we can find it, noted Lieutenant Sophia Diaz, the team's tactical specialist. And assuming we can get close enough. That's where we come in, Elena said firmly. Our training has shown that the Void Whispers operate as a collective consciousness. Each vessel, each tendril of darkness, is connected to a central node, what we might call their brain. Through our quantum resonance training, we've developed the ability to sense that connection. The assembled team exchanged nervous glances. What Elena was proposing was unprecedented. A direct assault on an alien consciousness using humans as both weapons and shields. There's something else you should know, Dr. Kapoor interjected, her usually confident voice subdued. The latest neural scans show increasing integration of quantum patterns in your cerebral structures. This connection, it's becoming permanent. A heavy silence fell over the room. What does that mean exactly? Marcus finally asked. Kapoor hesitated. It means that even if we succeed, even if we destroy the Void Whispers, the 12 of you will carry traces of their consciousness for the rest of your lives. Your brains have been fundamentally altered. Elena absorbed this revelation with outward calm, though inside, a cold dread spread through her. We all knew the risks when we volunteered, she said simply. The mission proceeds as planned. 3 days later, as the Void Whispers advance fleet entered Mars orbit and began their methodical consumption of the Red Planet, the SSV Prometheus launched from the lunar base. Its revolutionary engines propelled it on an intercept course, cloaked in the quantum shield that rendered it invisible to the alien senses. On the bridge, Elena and her team monitored the approaching alien armada. The main view screen showed the horrifying spectacle of Phobos, one of Mars' moons, being systematically broken down by the shadow vessels, its matter converted to energy to fuel their insatiable advance. They're so efficient, Marcus observed, a reluctant note of scientific admiration in his voice. No waste, no hesitation. No mercy, Elena added quietly. Remember what they did to Proxima. As they approached the outer edges of the Void Whispers fleet, Elena activated the neural interface system installed on the bridge. The 12 members of the Vanguard Initiative connected simultaneously, their minds joining in a human network designed to detect and track the alien consciousness. The sensation was overwhelming, like suddenly hearing thousands of voices whispering in an alien language just at the edge of comprehension. Elena focused, drawing on her months of training to filter the cacophony. There, she said finally, directing the ship's course. That formation near what's left of Phobos. They're protecting something. The Prometheus altered course, slipping between the massive shadow vessels with terrifying proximity. Through the viewports, the crew could see the undulating darkness of the alien hulls, so close they could have touched them, if not for the thin barrier of the ship's hull. Neural activity spiking, reported Dr. Kapoor from the science station. They sense something, but they can't locate us precisely. Elena gripped the command chair tightly. Keep pushing. We need to get closer to the Nexus. As the Prometheus penetrated deeper into the alien formation, the neural interface revealed more of the Void Whispers' nature. Images and impressions flooded the human minds connected to the system. A history of consumption across countless star systems, a relentless drive to absorb all energy and matter into their collective consciousness. They're not just destroyers, Elena realized aloud. They're archivists. They preserve everything they consume in their collective memory, including Proxima. Marcus added quietly. Our people are still there, in some form, inside their consciousness. This revelation added new urgency to their mission. They weren't just fighting to save Earth. They were fighting to prevent 15,000 souls from becoming eternal prisoners in an alien mind. The ship shuddered suddenly, alarms blaring across the bridge. They've detected us. Lieutenant Diaz reported. The quantum shield is failing. Outside, the nearest shadow vessels began to alter course, converging on the Prometheus like antibodies attacking an infection. Full power to engines, Alina ordered. We need to reach the Nexus before they can organize a response. The Prometheus surged forward, its revolutionary drives pushing it to speeds that strained both the ship's structural integrity and the crew's bodies. G-forces mounted despite the inertial dampeners, pressing them into their seats. Through the growing pressure, Alina maintained her focus on the neural interface. The alien consciousness was reacting now, not just with confusion, but with something approaching fear. They had never encountered a species that could penetrate their collective mind, never faced an enemy that understood them on their own terms. There, Alina gasped, pointing ahead to where the shadow vessels formed a protective sphere around what appeared to be an unremarkable point in space. The Nexus point isn't a physical structure, it's a quantum singularity, the focal point of their collective consciousness. Chief Engineer Takahashi's voice came over the comm from the engine room. Shields at 28% and falling. We won't survive direct contact with those vessels. We don't need to, Alina replied, her eyes never leaving the target. Prepare the quantum disruptor for remote deployment. Set detonation for quantum resonance with their neural frequency. As Takahashi made the final adjustments, the first tendrils of darkness reached the Prometheus, brushing against the failing shields. Where they touched, the energy barrier sizzled and dissolved, allowing the alien presence direct contact with the ship's hull. Breach on decks 3 and 4, Diaz reported. They're inside the ship. Alina turned to Marcus. You know what to do if I fail. Before he could respond, she disconnected from her command chair and moved to the central neural interface hub. Reroute all power to the interface. Maximize the connection. Commander, that level of neural load could kill you, Dr. Kapoor protested. And if we fail, Earth dies, Alina countered. Do it. As the ship began to disintegrate around them, the doctor reluctantly made the adjustments. Alina placed her hands on the interface orb, and her mind plunged deeper into the alien consciousness than any human had gone before. The experience defied description, a total immersion in a vast, ancient intelligence that spread across galaxies and eons. Alina felt herself dissolving, her human identity becoming a tiny spark in an ocean of alien thought. But that spark refused to be extinguished, drawing on everything that made her human. Her memories, her emotions, her fierce determination to save her species. Alina pushed back against the overwhelming presence, and as she did, she understood the Void Whisper's fundamental weakness. Their perfect unity was also perfect rigidity. They had evolved to assimilate other consciousnesses, but never encountered one that refused assimilation so completely. Human adaptability, human stubbornness, the very contradictions in human nature that created both compassion and cruelty, love and hate. These were concepts the collective could not process. With the last of her strength, Alina seized this confusion and amplified it, creating a cascading disruption throughout the collective consciousness. Simultaneously, she transmitted the detonation signal to the quantum disruptor as it launched toward the Nexus point. The device activated, generating a counter-resonance that perfectly matched and canceled the quantum frequency that bound the Void Whispers together. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The shadow vessels convulsed, their perfect synchronization shattered. Some imploded, collapsing into microscopic singularities that winked out of existence. Others began to dissolve, their constituent matter no longer held together by the collective will. On the bridge of the rapidly disintegrating Prometheus, Alina collapsed as the neural feedback overwhelmed her system. Marcus caught her, dragging her toward the escape pods as bulkheads collapsed around them. Did we succeed? She gasped, barely conscious. Look, Marcus said simply, turning her face toward the viewport. Outside, the vast armada of shadow vessels was coming apart, dissolving into harmless particles that scattered across space like dark confetti. The Void Whispers, the existential threat to humanity's survival, were being unmade. 3 months later, Alina stood at a viewport in the rebuilt Lunar Command Center, watching Earth rotate serenely below. Her recovery had been slow and painful. The neural damage from her direct confrontation with the alien consciousness had left its mark. Occasional tremors in her hands, dreams filled with whispered alien thoughts, moments when she seemed to perceive reality on quantum levels no human was meant to experience. But Earth was safe. The Void Whispers had been defeated not by superior firepower or technology, but by the very essence of humanity. Its stubborn individuality, its refusal to surrender in the face of overwhelming odds. Admiral Hassan joined her at the viewport, his normally stern face softened with rare emotion. The Defense Council's decision was unanimous, he informed her. Project Pioneer has been approved. We're expanding beyond our solar system, establishing new colonies with the technologies we developed to fight the Void Whispers. Elena nodded, feeling a complex mixture of pride and apprehension. And my recommendation? Accepted, Hassan confirmed. All new colonies will include quantum resonance detectors. If the Void Whispers, or anything like them, ever return, we'll have advance warning. They will return, Elena said with quiet certainty. Not soon, perhaps not in our lifetime, but they exist in many forms across the universe. Our victory was just the beginning. Hassan studied her carefully. The medical team reports your condition is evolving. The quantum patterns in your brain are stabilizing, she finished for him. I'm learning to live with them. We all are. She didn't mention the new abilities that she and the other survivors of the Vanguard Initiative were developing. Perceptions and intuitions that went beyond normal human capacity. That was a conversation for another day. A future challenge for a species that had proven its right to exist among the stars. We stopped consuming resources on the new neural dampeners, Hassan admitted. The research suggests they wouldn't work anyway. Whatever you've become, it's permanent. Elena turned from the viewport to face him directly. What we've become, Admiral, is the next step. The Void Whispers taught us something important about ourselves, about our potential. They meant to destroy us, but instead, they forced us to evolve. She looked back at the blue-green sphere of Earth, feeling both detached from and fiercely protective of the world that had created her. Humanity has always adapted to survive. It's what we do best. And now we know that we're not just capable of surviving in this universe, we're capable of changing it. The shadow of the Void Whispers would never fully leave humanity, but neither would the knowledge that when faced with annihilation, the human spirit had not broken or surrendered. It had transformed, becoming something stronger, something new, a beacon of defiance against the darkness between the stars. And that transformation was just beginning.